Hello and welcome to the Competitor Threat Analyzer Canvas walkthrough. This is a summary view, and if you want full instructions, they're available on the Analyser website. A link will be provided at the end of this video. The canvas is used to understand a competitor's standing in the market in order to gain an advantage. And the key anti-pattern here is where competitor analysis is gathered, but the product teams are not doing anything with it. So for example, you're looking at all the key messaging, or you're looking at the fonts or the way that the brand is setting itself up, and you're not actually reacting to that at all. This is often at the forefront of sales and marketing, but in some cases the product development teams can be left behind. Some other anti-patterns which can cause you a lot of trouble. First one is feature matching, where basically you look at the strengths of the competitors' features versus your own, and you try and bring yours up to a level that match them. This can be very expensive, and you're making assumptions that the features that the competitor has are something that the customer values. Now, in some cases, the customer may not be that bothered about them at all, and you could spend an awful lot of effort matching the features. Instead, look at the problem that each of these features is solving, and if it's big enough for your current customer base, that will give you an idea as to whether or not you should match that feature. Copying their new work, very similar. Just because they've come up with an idea doesn't mean it's going to be successful. And if you continually copy their new work, it means you're not innovating as much. You may end up just playing catch up with that competitor who's often releasing things faster than you. Not understanding their positioning. So fundamentally, you may wish to differentiate differently. And if you continually copy their features, you will be forcing yourself to position yourself in the same way that they are. And finally, not understanding their target customer. If they're going after, let's say, small scale clients with a simple use case, and you're going after enterprise clients with a complex use case, you are fundamentally looking at different customers, and therefore your product will be different. By comparing yourself to every competitor and not understanding what type of customer they're going after, you will spread yourself too thin by creating many features for many different types of customers and potentially not appealing to anyone. So this is the Competitor Threat Analyzer Canvas. I'll talk you through the sections in detail in a minute. First of all, you've got market position. This gives you how they position themselves. Are they the cheapest? Are they the easiest to use? Are they the most feature rich? Who's the target customer, which I mentioned earlier? How well known are they? Are they very well known in the market? And are they market leaders? So this is giving you an idea about how successful this organization is. And most importantly, what's their product growth looking like? Even if you've got a market leader, if they are losing a lot of business, it may mean that their product strategy is inefficient and their product isn't working. And vice versa, you may have a very small company that has got major growth and you really want to keep an eye on them. So product growth is extremely important. The customer channels, this is really around the official buyer reviews and where the product is discussed. It might be that customers are discussing things amongst themselves, or the organization that is your competitor is reaching customers on these channels. In this section, you simply record that. And pricing, where do they position themselves? Are they a cheap, low-cost product, or are they a high-cost premium product? How competitive are they? How are they pricing themselves? Finally, future direction here, we've got a conversation about how much threat we've got. So future direction is useful to know, but you can assess this in terms of threat. So I talked about the anti-patterns earlier about copying people's features, especially new ones. This is where you can note down, like, what have they got in progress? And what key messaging, what themes are they pushing? They may even be changing their positioning. And the most important of all is the customer views. Why is this competitor winning? Why is this competitor losing? And you can see a number of aspects on the left-hand side of this grid. And there's a space here also for other if yours is not included. Pay particular attention to this because this really is the strengths and weaknesses that matter to customers. So now I'm going to take you through each section in a little bit more detail. So here's market position. So we talked about product positioning before. What specific differentiators are they pushing? What do they say they're good at? You'll often find that there are videos where customers who are with them are being told, can you please talk about this particular aspect of our product? We really want to push this. Sometimes you'll find that's things like ease of use. Target customer. What type of customer do they prioritize? It's important to realize that we're not just talking about which customers do they pick up, because they could be picking up all sorts of different types of customers, but who are they prioritizing? Product recognition. Poorly known can represent a lower threat. So if somebody isn't very well known, then maybe they're not as threatening, but watch out for big marketing budgets for new organizations. So they may be poorly known, but they might be running very expensive advertising and marketing campaigns, and they will rapidly gain traction in the market. Market share. The real reason why you want to track this is the bigger budgets often mean larger market share, and that means they've got more money to spend. Let's say you've got 10 development teams and they've got 100. They may have the ability to make more changes than you. At this point, you're going to have to be very careful about how you spend your money. And product growth, like I spoke to you about before, organizations that show major growth can present a major risk. Now, one caveat here is whether or not they are going very, very low on their pricing to take market share. If they're doing that, this may not be sustainable. Fundamentally, with product growth, you need to know why they're growing. Just coming back to product positioning, if you look at the diagram on the right, you can see there are two parts to this: is your product and your competitor's product. You'll find that there's common functionality between the two. There are differentiators which you and your competitor are not pushing, even though you do have differences there. And then you have claimed differentiators. And what's most important here is that claimed doesn't mean it's real. So they are claiming that their product is better than yours, but you will be able to validate that with the customer views later on. Customer channels, again, covered this briefly in the overview. So what customers say about the product is more important than what the organization says. Do not be afraid of their sales and marketing. If they're saying that they have the best run rate in the market, and yet customers are complaining consistently of their service being unreliable and the service going down, then you know that the claims are not matching the reality, and customers will know this. Buyer reviews, this is where official channels are, where customers leave their reviews. And then where the product is discussed could be digital or non-digital. They could be at, for example, trade shows. They could be having customers do demonstrations or talking about it at public events. Competitors reaching their customers may be sales, so they might simply be using channels to push sales, or they could be creating relationships. So, for example, on X, also known as Twitter, they may be having conversations with their customers when they're unhappy. And then most importantly is where are customers talking amongst themselves. So this is where the company can't, or the organization cannot control the narrative. Customers are discussing with each other about what they are happy or not happy with, and you can often find pain points emerging. Often you'll see things like forums, public forums, where these sorts of discussions take place. This customer channel is actually very useful because you can align your sales, marketing, and product teams around the channels you should be monitoring, and then each of those functions can make actions based on the key findings from them. Let's talk about pricing in a little bit more detail. So successful pricing will directly relate to a customer's perception of value. If the customer perceives something as very high value, they will be more likely to pay for it. And what we talk about here when we talk about the customer is the ideal customer profile. If I'm looking at a customer who is not particularly interested in the product I have, then they aren't going to see a lot of value and they will want an extremely low price. At this point, they may not be worth even chasing. So the ideal customer profile becomes very important. If you know the sort of customer you're going after and you know the sort of customer that your competitors are going after, the question is, are they appealing to them? So here you can see a little grid, and on the left-hand side, you can see the price being high. And then on the right-hand side, you can see it going from basic product to strongly differentiated. And what we're looking at here is, in that middle line, is basic customer expectations based on competitors. So they're going to compare that product with the competitors, and they're going to decide whether or not it is good value, or whether or not it's bad value, or whether or not it simply meets expectations. There are a couple of things to keep an eye out here. One is skim pricing for a new type of product. So if you've got a brand new type of product that is superior to everything on the market, you can potentially charge more for that. Eventually, as competitors catch up, you'll have to reduce the pricing, but it could be very high at the initial stages because customers have a lot of demand for it and there's no competition. Penetration pricing, where organizations are looking to build market share. Looked at this earlier where we said that if they're doing penetration pricing but it's not sustainable, then it could be a race to the bottom. You need to be very careful here. The competitive advantage may only be there because of the price. And customers, as soon as the price goes up, will switch back to an alternate product. So don't necessarily follow a pricing strategy where everyone's undercutting everybody else. So this is a balance, and understanding the differentiators that matter to your customers allows you to understand where you should price. Assessing future threats. This is the entire purpose of future direction. There can be a lot of messaging going out there, can be a lot of development in progress, but where is the threat? That's what you really want to understand. The developments in progress, you can test their new ideas with your customers. If they've come up with a new feature, you could even ask your customer base, particularly the customers who use your product a lot, what do you think of this? Would you pay for it? You might find you're surprised by the answers. Perhaps they come back and say that's of no interest to us. And at this point, rather than taking it forward as a potential strategic item, you can stop immediately and say, look, we just don't think this idea is very good for us. Next, the key messaging. Subjects or trends they're discussing, they might be trying to be thought leaders in a particular area. And more to the point, are they changing their product positioning? So are they taking a trend or something, perhaps in conjunction with the development in progress, and trying to position themselves slightly differently? Again, this can represent a future threat and worth keeping an eye on. And probably the most important part of the entire canvas is the customer views as to why you won or lost against a competitor. Check this at the point of joining in terms of winning. So if you've got a customer coming in and you want to find out your own reasons for why people decided to choose you, this is very, very useful information, because at that point it's what they think about the product at the point of sale, rather than waiting a few months and then them saying, actually, I like this or I don't like this after they've used your product. Now, you can't always tell or talk to a customer who you've lost to a competitor, but you can often find these in the customer reviews, which was in the channels earlier. So why did that competitor win? Great, it was for this reason. Why did that competitor lose? Well, you actually got access to those people. So potentially you can ask them, what didn't you like about this competitor's offering? What do I actually do about all of this? So here are a couple of graphs. Fields competitor analysis. This is created by myself. So on the left-hand side here, you can see the current win rate against the ideal customer. Is that high or low? And then you can see the competitive threat to future win rate. So we're talking about the actual win rate and the future potential threat. And we can model out our competitors here against how we should act. So if the threat of them winning in the future is very high, and let's say their current win rate is very high, then we have to act now. So very straightforward, like we have to do something about this. If it's sort of in the middle range, you can consider action. The other point here is that if you have spare capacity and you are starting to decrease a competitor's win rate, you may press your advantage. You could take the rest of the market from them. So you have options here, but most importantly, and that's why it's in red, is responding to competitors where you are losing your market position. And if you look on the right, you'll see the competitor differentiator analysis. So in some cases, you can't always copy a competitor's differentiator. It could be very difficult to replicate it. So you can see on the bottom there, you've got the cost of replicating the differentiator between low and high. And you've got the differentiator strength. So let's say you've got a major reason for sales loss from that differentiator, and the cost of replicating that differentiator is really high. Then at this point, I'm kind of stuck. Perhaps it's 2 years worth of development to actually catch up. So I should look to create new advantage. And if you see there, you've got many options like create a new differentiator, improve your current differentiators, reduce your pricing, or improve your marketing and sales messaging. And then if it's sort of in the middle, you've got the option of copying their differentiator or creating a new advantage. So you'll be looking at different solutions options there. And then on the left-hand side, you'll see it's very clear that if the cost of replicating a differentiator is low and it's a high reason for sales loss, then just copy it. There's no reason not to. So this just gives you a view of, once you've decided to act, like how are you going to act? And you can use these two different graphs in order to figure out what you should do next. Finally, here's the link to the competitor threat analyzer, a lot more detail online. And if you want any more information on this, you'll find this written up on the site. Thank you.